Facebook.
Waiting for a vibe network.
Where do we find cups?
Cabinet.
Cabinet, the glass cabinet on the wall.
Gotcha.
Lee's making her drink right now. As we are waiting to start with everybody. Happy chilly December, almost December. Thanksgiving week.
Almost Thanksgiving. Let's one holiday at a time. We're getting there.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
And there we are.
We got
Hello.
everybody.
Good evening, everybody. All right, what do we got going on here? Boom.
You're muted, right?
Huh? On here? Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Because we've had that feedback before, and it's not pretty.
No, it's not. And so I have, in my not so infinite wisdom, managed to avoid that this evening. But
Sorry, my energy is very low right now.
it's things have slowed down a little bit for us. I mean, it is most of the way through November at this point. So, but yeah, so finally starting to slow down, catch our breath. And here's Lee.
Hello.
And
Or eggnog and rum.
Yep.
Because it's eggnog season.
Yeah, we're being eggnog people.
And yes, I doing the whole gingerbread stout and eggnog thing.
Yeah.
It is.
What are the proportions?
I usually do about 50-50.
Ah, gotcha.
It's delicious, but you can do it to taste.
Mm.
I'm boring. I'm drinking tea with honey.
It's all right. More booze for me. But anyway, so yeah. Oh, and yeah. So we got
Quite a few people.
that's
Already chiming in.
got our friend Sam Chase up at National Nightmares up in Washington D.C.
Oh, nice. Hey.
So he's here with here checking in this evening, and yeah, so glad to have you all here. And yes, yep, Roberta. We'll see if the kitty cat's make an appearance tonight.
He is over here snuggled in a blankie.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm
like
pretty.
a bird's nest.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the other three are probably all snuggled up in bed. Even though we have a fire going in the fireplace, it's
chilly.
it is a little chilly. It's cooled off a tad bit, so
But we don't have 6 feet of snow.
No.
So we'll take it.
we are not Buffalo right now, so there is that.
Does Lulu snuggle with the boys?
Yes.
That's adorable. I haven't seen pictures though.
That's because it's all takes place in the bed.
Ah.
We don't photograph the bed.
So you can go and take a picture of that later on and
Yeah,
share
just send it to me. They don't have to see.
it. So, but yeah, hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody is getting ready for the Thanksgiving holiday this weekend, and whether you're traveling or staying home and just kind of chilling on your own, whatever have you. I hope you are able to just kind of enjoy and take some time off and relax for a couple of days.
I'm hanging out with my employers. What
Yeah.
are you guys doing?
I'm feeding my employees.
How about that?
Yeah, Lee's going to be up here a couple times this week, along with a couple other folks as well. So, but yes, we'll be doing.
We have Friendsgiving.
Friendsgiving on which we will be doing on Thanksgiving Day.
Yes.
So, because
Because we're seeing family the week after.
that's how things pan out this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, so with all that said, it is
Haunted New Hampshire time.
Haunted New Hampshire time. Yeah. So as we've been talking about for like the over 2.5 years now, we started diving in and
I have started the state wander.
Yeah, started the state wander. I'm not sure which state did we do first?
Florida, I think.
Wandered Florida?
Or was it New York?
I think it was New York.
We've done the Finger Lakes and northern New York.
Yeah.
So we've actually done New York a couple
Twice.
times, technically.
And we've done New England.
Yeah, we did New England, which was very general, and technically New Hampshire is a part of New England.
Yep.
So
New England might be what I was thinking of.
yeah, and we have done Kentucky, we did Hawaii, we've done Alaska.
Have we done Virginia?
We have not actually done
No.
Virginia yet. No.
Strange.
Now, yes and no. I mean, we kind of got a little wanderlust when we started doing these.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that we will be getting back to doing the words. We'll do Virginia at some point. Because eventually we plan to get around and do all 50 states.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So, yes. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, as it were.
Yeah,
And-
so this is just a hint. We'll get back to actually doing more states in the new year. Because, of course, in December we do Christmas stories.
Yep. So, yeah. Next month, just a very, very high-level sneak preview. There will be 2 Christmassy type episodes. One of them will be hauntings around the Christmas holiday,
Oop,
which will
sorry.
actually be...
It was you guys.
And then we'll do more Victorian ghost stories.
Yeah, and another episode of Victorian Ghost Stories. So we'll be looking forward to doing that next month. So, but anyways, for tonight, Haunted New Hampshire. And so let's go ahead, we'll dive in. So while the leaves are still dropping from trees here in Virginia, the state of New Hampshire is quickly dropping into the dead of winter. This mountainous state has a proud history that drastically outweighs its relatively small size. It was the first of the colonies to declare independence from Great Britain, and today its citizens still exhibit a stubbornness that makes the state motto, "Live free or die," ring just as true as ever. In fact, it would be fair to say that some Granite Staters of generations past may be too stubborn to rest in peace. Our first stop, we are going to be going to the very narrow sliver of land where New Hampshire actually touches the Atlantic Ocean. Somehow they kind of got a little shortchanged on that. I think they don't have any more than like 20 miles of coastline.
Oh, no, it's a very fast drive by it.
Yeah. They got kind of squeezed out a little bit by Maine and Massachusetts, but they do have some ocean front. And it's there that we find the city of Portsmouth, and it's along Pleasant Avenue that stands a mansion that was built back in 1763 by Henry Appleton. Now, Appleton subsequently sold this mansion to Mark Wentworth, one of New Hampshire's wealthiest merchants and landowners, the following year. The Wentworths were a family of means, a fact that was perhaps best exemplified by the appointment of Mark's son John as the royal governor of New Hampshire in 1767. For his part, Mark occupied the mansion on Pleasant Street until his departure on the eve of the American Revolution in 1775. Though he didn't live there during the war, he did maintain ownership until he transferred the property to his daughter, Anna Fisher, in 1770. The home was sold outside the Wentworth family in 1797, but it was later purchased by Ebenezer Wentworth in 1810. The mansion would remain a home for the Wentworth family until the early 1900s. About this time, subsequent generations of the Wentworths adapted the property for use as an elder care facility, a role it continues to serve today as Wentworth Senior Living. Initially named Mark H. Wentworth's House for the Chronically Invalid, it was privately owned facility caring for the aging until the 1990s, when it was repurposed to care for elderly patients of the state. For the last 20 years, both patients and staff have reported a lingering presence and physical phenomena that includes locked doors opening, disembodied footsteps, and objects moving around on their own. Having now served as an elderly care facility for over a century, it is a fact that many people had passed away within the Wentworth house. And that's what many people believe is the driving force behind the paranormal encounters that are rife in the facility today. Some staff members have even reported encountering a full apparition that would sometimes have a few words to say before fading away. Staffers will try to avoid going into the older parts of the building during the dead of the night unless it's absolutely necessary. Those working the graveyard shift will sometimes be at their duty stations as they listen to the sounds of doors opening and closing on their own in empty, darkened corridors, sometimes accompanied by the hushed voices of people who are not truly there. That said, it's reportedly not a bad place to live or work, for that matter. None of the activity seems to be malicious, even if it can be a bit unsettling for some people. Others take a different view and note that for those in the twilight of their lives, this can be seen as a sign that there may be another life for them just beyond the veil. So, take it for what you will. A couple of different ways to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Another place I want to go visit. So we're gonna. Any questions before we start? I saw a bunch of things popping up. That's why I was asking.
Looks like no questions.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're gonna jump over to Kimball Castle in Gilford, New Hampshire. This is a lakefront property, and it's a former summer home estate of the railroad magnate Benjamin Ames Kimball. It's in the town of Gilford on a hill overlooking the largest lake in New Hampshire, Lake Winnipesaukee. Portions of the Kimball original 300-acre estate have been subdivided and, of course, sold off, but much of it still remains conservation land managed by the town now. The castle was once one of the sections that was sold off and is now privately owned, but that hasn't stopped the tales about the castle from being passed down through the years. First, historic context, of course. Benjamin Kimball commissioned the castle and estate outbuildings beginning in 1894 and used it as his summer estate until his death in 1920. In his home in Concord, the castle was built by stonemasons using local granite and materials imported from Europe. In 1960, Charlotte Kimball, Benjamin Kimball's daughter-in-law and the last remaining heir, died and in her will donated the land to the Mary Mitchell Humane Foundation to manage the property as a wildlife preserve and sanctuary. Over the next several years, the funds left to carry out the wishes of Charlotte Kimball went missing. And, well, the Mary Mitchell Humane Foundation attempted to sell the entire estate. Through the 1960s and 70s, the property fell into disrepair as the buildings became subject to extensive vandalism and theft. A group of concerned citizens petitioned New Hampshire's Attorney General's Office of Charitable Trusts, and an investigation into the missing funds ensued. As a settlement of the lawsuit, Attorney General and Belknap County Superior Court ordered that the town take over as trustees of Charlotte's estate and carry out the tenets of her will. The town of Gilford took over as trustees in 1981 and performed a study about how best to carry out Charlotte's wishes. The master plan recommended that the land be subdivided and a portion of the land, including the castle, be sold to a private party for commercial development, with the intent that all the proceeds of the sales would be used to replenish the missing funds and carry out Charlotte's wishes of managing the remaining land still held in trust. Proposals have been made but not acted upon to develop the castle into a resort hotel. The castle and its associated outbuildings were listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1982. However, the castle has been condemned by the town of Gilford as unsafe. So today it stands as a fenced-in husk awaiting for whatever fate it may eventually be subjected to. Over the decades, the Kimball Castle has been the subject of numerous haunting tales. The castle's current owners report seeing the apparition of a tall, shadowy man and hearing the sounds of horses kicking and stamping in the empty stables. They also report cold spots, floating lights, and doors opening and closing on their own. Some of the unexplained phenomenon has been Some of the unexplained phenomenon has been reported at the Kimball Castle, including the loud and unexplained noises, lights turning on and off by themselves, and a couple of antique clocks that were long since dead and have suddenly decided to start working again. The presence in the castle is decidedly unwelcoming, and it's apparent that someone or something wants to be left alone there. Theories about the source of the hauntings generally revolve around the Kimballs, as they were the only family to live in this elaborate home. And who could blame them for being unhappy with the property's situation? Their final wishes for the estate were not honored in full, and their one-time home has been subjected to excessive abuse before the current owners stepped in and tried to salvage what was left. For our part, we hope the castle can be eventually restored to the point where the visitors will be welcome again, and perhaps the spirits will eventually be able to rest, or at least become more welcoming.
So, we may be having some slight technical difficulties this evening. It seemed like we got frozen there for a second.
Oh dear.
Looked like everything was recording okay here, but I don't know if it was getting broadcast okay. So, hope you can bear with us, and hopefully it's at least going to record correctly and be posted correctly later. So, we shall see. But in the meantime, thanks for sticking it out with us, and hopefully that will be the limits of our issues for tonight. Knocking on wood, yes. So, we are going to go ahead and swing back down to the coastal region, and we'll land in the city of Dover, where we can find the historic cotton mill known as Cocheco Mill No. 1. This large 5-story building was built in 1890 and was used to manufacture cotton fabric. On January 26th of 1907, the mill would become the site of one of Dover's most notable industrial tragedies, a day where everything that could go wrong did. On a bitterly cold day, when the mercury reached 25 degrees below zero, a fire broke out on the 3rd floor. The sprinkler system was turned off for repairs, so the fire spread quickly, trapping many workers on the 4th and 5th floors. The power was cut, leaving these employees to escape through the darkness and smoke. The mill only had one fire escape, so many people were injured as they leapt from the upper windows. The firefighters that responded from Portsmouth and Dover battled the fire for 36 hours. Their efforts were hampered by ladders that were too short to reach the upper floors and freezing temperatures that froze the firefighting equipment. Making matters worse still, several buggies driven in by sightseers cut several of the fire hoses. In the end, 6 lives were lost and the building was partially destroyed. 3 stories collapsed into each other, taking tons of machinery down with them. Just days before this fire, the mutual insurance company had declared the mill excellent when it came to safety. Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Theories about the cause of the fire ran rampant, but no official cause was ever established. The mills were eventually reconstructed and various manufacturing continued for decades. Eventually, the mills were decommissioned and have since been renovated into offices, apartments, and other various businesses. The modern building is considered to be extremely haunted, activity that many credit to the 1907 fire. While the fire is likely one of the leading causes, various eyewitness accounts seem to point to the building having a portal that allows a variety of spirits to come and go. 2 common reports are of strange lights being seen in the upper floors of the building when it has been empty. Before the more modern renovations, witnesses reported seeing a light on in one of the basements at a time when the entrances to these rooms were blocked off and no one is present in them. In more recent times, many people have reported hearing disembodied voices, especially in the 2 towers that house the stairwells. One eerie reoccurring report involves people hearing the old mill's machinery start up or shut down. This despite there no longer being any milling equipment remaining in the building today. One maintenance manager at the old mill shared his bizarre experience as he was covering a night shift for the janitor that was on vacation. It was 3 a.m. and he was on the 3rd floor cleaning a restroom when he became uneasy. He then heard a giggle. Knowing he was the only one in the building, his blood turned cold. When he stopped and listened, the sound stopped, but as soon as he moved again, he heard more laughter. This time, it was 2 distinct voices laughing. Both sounded like small children. Unnerved, he left the area quickly. Later that morning, when sunlight streamed in the windows, he returned to the area and noticed 2 pictures on the wall where he had heard the laughter. They were of 2 teenage sisters dressed in Victorian clothing. He felt in some way that these 2 had returned as children, and when the vacationing janitor returned to work, the manager asked him if he had ever had any unusual encounters during the wee hours of the night. The janitor smiled and replied, "You mean my girls." He went on to mention that besides the laughter, he often heard doors slam when they were already closed. The building houses an auditorium, and this janitor also mentioned that in the mornings he would find the same seats in the auditorium down, despite the fact that they were the kind that would spring up when no one was sitting in them. The manager, whose curiosity piqued, looked for these occurrences on future night shifts and was not disappointed. One night the manager brought his wife with him to the building. It had been raining and he wanted to check for leaks. While on an upper floor, the wife veered off to use a restroom. She met her husband in one of the offices. They turned to leave, and her husband paused. She followed his gaze to the bottom of the door. They both saw shadows moving outside the door and the gap beneath the door. It wasn't just 1 or 2 shadows, but an entire parade of shadows that passed. When they walked out to look, no one was there. They determined no one else was in the building with them at all. And when they checked the parking lot, there were in fact no cars there either. So, if you're looking for a spooky encounter in Dover, this might be a good bet. I will say, it's a pretty cool looking building. It's like right there over this, again, this Cocheco Mills, which is named after Cocheco Creek, which more or less kind of almost sits almost on top of. So kind of one of those, unique milling creek waterway kind of setup type deals. Cool building to look at. So.
I've gotten out of the habit of sitting in this seat.
So let me.
And thank you for blessing me, Patrick. I don't have salt to throw on my left shoulder. So I can tell my allergy medicine has run off.
Yep.
Like disappeared, or it's making you go off?
Oh no, it finally ran out.
Mm.
And I wasn't about to take another dose before my night dose.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like the freezing may have just been on our end.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Anyways, yes.
That's strange. Because I had it too.
It's because you're in the room with us.
Ooh,
In
it's
the
a
room
ghost.
Where it happened. We do have one.
It's the ghost.
All right. So we're gonna pop over to Nancy Brook Scenic area and the Notchland Inn at Hart's location. This is in mountain country in New Hampshire. For centuries, the hikers traveling in the Nancy Brook Scenic area of White Mountain National Forest have reported hearing cries and shrieks of laughter. These strange noises are thought to belong to a young woman named Nancy Barton, who had been hiking through Crawford Notch in the winter of 1778, when she succumbed to frostbite and hypothermia. Nancy died while in pursuit of a lover who had betrayed her. According to Marion O'Connor's Haunted Hikes of New Hampshire, 16-year-old Nancy Barton had worked as a servant for Colonel Joseph Whipple on his farm in Jefferson, New Hampshire, and it was there that she met and became infatuated with Jim Swindle, one of the hands on the farm. Nancy was smitten with her newfound love and confided in her neighbors that she and Jim shared similar values. When Jim eventually proposed, she was thrilled. Together, they planned to marry and settle in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Nancy believed he'd be sharing the rest of her life with Jim, including all of her assets. She entrusted him with her entire life savings, all the money she had earned while working for Colonel Whipple. This was a fatal mistake. While Nancy was away making arrangements to relocate to Portsmouth with her new fiancé, Colonel Whipple and Jim began to conspire against her. The colonel strongly supported the American colonies' fight for independence against the British in the Revolutionary War, and it's theorized that he convinced Jim to leave for Jefferson with Nancy's money and join the Continental Army. Upon hearing a rumor that her lover had betrayed her, Nancy quickly returned to Jefferson. After confirming that this was indeed true, Nancy set off on foot in pursuit. She was confident that Jim couldn't have traveled far. Many of her neighbors begged her not to go, arguing the trip would be dangerous in the winter conditions, but she was determined to find him. According to the accounts from her neighbors, she was adamant that the trip would be short and she would confront Jim and they would return to Jefferson together. As a result, Nancy only packed a small bundle of clothes and no food before setting out. Her trip through the Notch followed a 30-mile-long snow-covered trail that was not particularly well marked. After hiking for 20 miles, Nancy found the remains of a fire that she believed had been left by Colonel Whipple and Jim. She stopped for a while to rest and began to feel cold and hungry and tired. Determined, she continued. She mustered up the willpower to press on. Meanwhile, back in Jefferson, Nancy's neighbors grew concerned that she had not yet returned. They formed a search party and set out that night, hoping to find her before it was too late. Nancy continued to trudge through Crawford Notch with an increasingly difficulty. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. When she crossed a brook, her dress became soaked with water. Exhausted and freezing, Nancy sat by the brook, unable to keep going. The search party followed Nancy's tracks, hoping to find her alive, but when they reached the brook, their worst fears were confirmed. They found her sitting on a rock by the water, frozen to death. Nancy was buried by the brook where her body was found, and news of her death began to spread through the area. Jim, upon hearing of Nancy's tragic end, became consumed with guilt and experienced a psychotic episode. He died soon afterward in a psychiatric hospital, though the exact cause of death is unknown. The Nancy Brook Scenic area was given Nancy's name to commemorate her death. Other nearby locations include Nancy Cascades, Nancy Pond, and Mount Nancy, where they were all named in her honor. While the shrieks and the laughter in the forest have long been attributed to Nancy, the bizarre activity doesn't end there. Not far from the location of her death, residents of Notchland Inn have also reported many mysterious happenings that may or may not be attributed to Nancy's fate. At minimum, Notchland Inn pays tribute to the memory of Nancy. There's a grave headstone in front of the parlor that says 1778, Nancy Barton, died in a snowstorm in pursuit of her faithless lover. On the border of the property flows the Nancy Brook, which flows from Nancy Pond up top of Nancy Mountain. Now at the inn, one couple took a nap in mid-afternoon when they awoke to the name Abigail being written in the steam on the mirror of the bathroom. This despite the fact that the bath and the shower had not been used for several hours. Another guest woke up one afternoon from a nap and noticed that someone, his wife supposedly, had brought a fresh bunch of flowers into the room while he was napping. He reports that he went to the bathroom and somebody had written "Happy Anniversary" on the mirror in lipstick. He went back to the bedroom, but the flowers were gone. He turned back to the bathroom, and the writing on the mirror had disappeared. The activity in Notchland Inn has never been cause for any great concern. The present seems friendly, and has rarely given anyone a notable scare. This charming stay-over spot seems to be an ideal place for a delightfully spooky getaway.
Now, was it their anniversary?
It didn't say, actually.
Oh, okay.
And so, Patrick, that is not rain. You might be hearing our HVAC system kicking on in the background.
It sounds like a jet.
Yeah, so it can be a little on the noisy side sometimes. I was hoping that it wouldn't actually pick up on here, but...
As long as it doesn't sound like a evil laughter sigh like mine does. Like, we just turned the heat on for the first time, and now we know what the heat sounds like. It's not pleasant.
No.
Like, I'm thinking about just getting space ears. Scares the cats.
No,
Yeah.
they'll get used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, cats wind up having to
you
get
met
used to
Doc
this.
today.
Yes.
Not one to get used to anything.
Oh, this is true. I did have eyes the size of dinner plates. But, and yes, the fire's dying down a little bit, but we've got a good bed of coals in there, so I think we're good for the moment. But, yeah, that's, what was it? Yeah. Yeah, our we got some fire.
Yeah.
We got flamey bits.
Yep.
Got flamey bits. Oh, and a moment ago, that was a chocolate chip cookie that I was eating, courtesy of Lee, and it was delicious, by the way.
Thank you.
You can't go wrong with a good chocolate chip cookie.
Oh yeah,
and that was a good chocolate chip cookie.
My old roommate, she sent me more exact directions today. She texted me, she's like, I just realized my instructions are like grandma's.
Just like, yeah. Butter,
Sunflower.
Butter, sugar, flour.
Yeah.
What quantities? What do I bake this at? What order do I mix the ingredients in? Details.
It's kind of important.
So, and if you do want one of your cookies, we don't need to hog them.
Oh no, I have so many at home.
Okay, all right, those are for us. I won't complain.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, let's see. So yes, we're not done with charming little inns yet. We're going to be moving just a little bit to the northwest, where we arrive in the town of Littleton on the border with Vermont. Now, here you will find this charming little inn, the Beal House Inn, which was originally built as a farmhouse in 1883. Come 1933, Mrs. Beal turned the house into an inn, providing a foundation for the establishment that still resides there today. Over the years, the inn has had many owners, but it continues to offer guests a traditional New England welcome and hospitality. It was renovated extensively, and it has been given a facelift by the current owners. It now combines classic elegance with modern comforts. It is rumored that the haunting has started happening at the inn in 2001, right about the time that the renovations began. Shocking. Renovations stirred up some stuff.
Never heard of something like that before.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Now, on one particular night, one of the owner's parents came over from Europe to spend a couple nights in her son and daughter's new establishment. Not much is known about what the woman experienced, but she reported strange activity in her room during her stay. Another incident was when a housekeeper was painting when she felt some pressure on her hip. Thinking that it was one of the owners who went in and out of the tavern, she thought of moving to the other side, but terrifyingly, an unseen force held her there for a few seconds. Strange male voices have often been heard in the common room, although there is no one there, or even there is no one in there, let alone anybody speaking. The current owners and the staff of the hotel believe that the ghosts are there because they love the place so much and that they stay to protect the inn and the guests. Sounds optimistic. I mean, you know, people can be drawn into haunted locations. People will go and seek out haunted hotels and haunted restaurants, but usually they're looking for a paranormal experience that's going to be maybe not, let's just say, not overtly negative. So I guess it's probably in their best interest to paint the hauntings in a positive light.
Yes.
But
At least
anyway,
they talk about them. So many inns.
yeah, this is true. They do talk about them, which so many others do not. So, but anyways, the identity of the ghost supposedly haunting the halls is uncertain, but staff members have reported such spooky activity as a door being closed with great force, moving shadows and shapes in dimly lit corners of the basement. Pillows floating above the furniture, noises and voices in unoccupied rooms, the objects that aren't in the same place as you left them, and while unsettling, the activity has never actually been harmful. So if you're up for a place to stay with some edgier spirits, this might be a place for you. You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to stand up for a minute.
Yeah.
Would you like me to get you a chair?
No, I'm good.
So, and we're not quite done with haunted New Hampshire inns yet. We're going to come back to the center of the state where we find the village of Tilton and the appropriately named Tilton Inn. The original inn was built in 1875 and has hosted a few famous guests, including Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, which is a testament to just how lovely this place was and still is. The building has burnt down 3 times in the past, all within a span of approximately 100 years separating them. One of these particular fires is said to have claimed the life of a 12-year-old girl named Laura, who is suspected to have never left. Her family lived there at the inn in the 1800s in what is now known as the Sanborn Room. Multiple guests have reported seeing a young girl in various rooms and hallways throughout the inn. This adventurous spirit has been reported in her own room as well as in the restaurant and in the entrance area. The fact that the ghost of a child shares the hotel with guests isn't terribly alarming, though. She's said to be nice and stays out of the way most of the time. But she can seem to cause some mischief in the form of rattling glasses and knocking things off of shelves. Many have been drawn to the Tilton Inn due to the encounters with Laura, and one such individual who has some psychic abilities recounted his experience while visiting a few years ago. He recalled, "The owner took me to the room where the little girl's spirit had been seen most often. I sat quietly and asked whether anyone wanted to talk. Before I'd even finished, this girl came running in, bop, 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 up on the bed, turned around and gave me a great big cute kid smile. She had some sort of stuffed animal under her arm, and she said, 'I want you to know that I'm very happy here,' which absolutely blew my mind. A kid who had burned to death I figured would be traumatized, and I thought back to her, 'But you burned to death.' 'Oh, let's not get into that,' she replied, and she showed me a happy picture. I'd seen a portrait of Laura in the lobby, a typical turn-of-the-century portrait in a formal dress, her hair carefully done. The girl who came running in had a one-piece jumper on that went down to her ankles. It was tan with a blue paisley design, and her hair was all combed out." The psychic went on, "Of course, it can be a challenge to discern the difference between a passing thought and actual contact with someone who has passed. I try to be objective. I say to myself, come on now, did you want that to happen? Did you make that happen? But everything about Laura was contrary to my preconceived ideas. Her hair, her attitude, I don't think I could have made it up. I was able to determine that the dress did fit, historically speaking, that there had been such a style. The fact that she was happy and not at all what I had expected. The owner suggested that perhaps Laura stays because she sees herself as a greeter. I don't know, but the experience stands out both because Laura was a memorable character and because the most common experience is usually momentary. Extended back-and-forth interactions like that are rare. While child ghosts can be quite frightening, it seems safe to say that Laura is a spirit that means well to those who cross her path.
Maybe I can hang out with that kid ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
get
yes.
Scared off.
Yes.
Call my dad.
Lee had her an encounter with a spooky kid ghost.
And that was it.
Yeah, I called my father at 24 years old. Daddy, can you come get me?
That was coming up, was 11:30 at night?
It didn't help that we were surrounded in very, very thick fog and somebody played the Silent Hill
Somebody.
Oh, please.
It was all fun. It was all
It's
fun.
become a
Let's be
running
honest.
joke.
We were all at the Dunlaura Inn. The three of us and a couple other people had joined us. We were at Dunlaura Inn for a night and had the place
Which
to
was
ourselves.
great, by the way.
It was fantastic.
Let's be honest. The second I saw that the bed was so high and like they're like, yeah, kids come in here all the time. I was like, shit. I'm done.
Anyway,
But yes, we digress.
we digress.
As we do.
We're going to move down close to the Massachusetts border this time with the town of Windham. As an establishment here, appropriately named, I can read, I promise, the Windham Restaurant. It has an entire section of their website dedicated to the spirits that haunt the building. The Windham Restaurant resides in a residence that was once built in 1812 by the Dinsmore family. It has the distinction of being home to New Hampshire's Governor Samuel Dinsmore, who served from 1931 to 1933. Other families resided in the home as well until the 1980s when it was renovated into the restaurant space that is there today. Nearly every section of the restaurant is said to have a resident spirit. There's Jacob, or the man in the blue suit, who's often who is the most often seen, and though many have reported hearing children's voices and seeing a young girl as well. Events include chairs and place settings moving on their own accord, smashing of expensive dishes and wine glasses, a man seen falling down the stairs, and seemingly playful stacks of decorative Christmas presents into towers, electrical problems, and the curious obsession with blonde women.
Hey. We love that here.
We're dyeing the hair before we go.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's be honest. I'm always like 10 seconds away from dyeing it red.
A number of women with their light-colored hair have reported feeling a presence, and their jewelry has again and again come unfastened for apparently no reason. Paranormal investigations of the building have found several spirits that may have explained the various activity. It is believed that Jacob, known as the man in the blue suit, once lived in the home and suffered a fatal heart attack that sent him careening down the steep front staircase. A little blond boy, identified as William, is told of being struck by a horse-drawn carriage and carried into the house where he died. The nameless girl, again, is there too. The ghosts are mischievous but not malevolent, which has made them welcome members of the Windham family restaurant. The owners embrace their spirited co-inhabitant as they draw in a number of curiosity speakers, particularly during the Halloween season. Jacob, William, and the little girl are so intriguing that the restaurant hosts a popular series of Dining with the Dead events, where the presentation is served with a meal, and one scheduled right before Halloween includes readings by well-known psychics for the participants.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a good time.
It does.
What was I? I don't know either. My mind is wandering a little bit.
The focus is not there.
No, that's okay.
We know how to focus.
Yeah.
Takes a few more weeks after a Halloween.
This is why we always use the script on these shows because, well...
It keeps it from being a complete train wreck.
Writing and editing these scripts alone takes a couple weeks, and let alone actually sitting down and trying to memorize them from one end to the other.
Tried that for the first one. It didn't go too well.
it's definitely not like giving a tour. This is fun, but it's definitely not like giving a tour. So, but anyways, so it's a Monday. It's a Monday. It's a Monday. Many minds are gone at this point. This is true, and it is a holiday week as well, which I know. Speaking for myself, I'm basically already kind of checked out. Yeah, I do have to go to work tomorrow and Wednesday, but I'm just looking forward to the long weekend.
I only have Thursday off.
Yes, but
Off. I'm working.
you can go to work and drink coffee all day though, and make coffee. Sorry, digressing again. Anyways, carrying on.
Cemetery.
So, moving along. So, not far from Windham is the town of Hollis, home to Pine Hill Cemetery. However, this burial ground is known to many by another name, the Blood Cemetery. Nicknamed Blood Cemetery by the locals, it is the final resting place of more than 300 people, some of whom have been interred there since the 1700s. Along with reports of mysterious noises and floating orbs of light in the graveyard at night, Pine Hill Cemetery is said to host one specter who gives the cemetery its morbid nickname. Abel Blood, who was interred in 1867 right next to his late wife Betsy, was rumored to have been murdered, and his ghost supposedly haunts the cemetery, scaring visitors who come to his final resting place. His gravestone bears a carving of a hand pointing up to heaven, but it is said that if one visits the headstone at night, the hand may be pointing down. One paranormal investigator recounted his experience at the cemetery on a cool evening in the fall of 1990. He and a friend stopped along the roadside and walked into the cemetery around dusk and began looking around. They were there for about 20 minutes without seeing much. It was quiet at the time, almost an eerie quiet, but the longer they stayed, the more comfortable they became being there. They heard some rustling in the nearby woods that didn't amount to anything, and they continued to walk around reading and admiring the craftsmanship of the headstones from an earlier time. As the sun was setting, the investigator looked around and saw an engraving of a hand on one of the gravestones that had a finger pointed upwards. It didn't seem particularly remarkable at first, that is, until he turned around to look at his friend for a moment, and then turned back to the stone with the engraved hand on it. He noticed that the hand was leaking some sort of brownish, rust-colored fluid that was not there just seconds earlier. It had puddled up on the bottom of the egg-shaped recessed area around the hand and began to drip down the face of the headstone. The investigator was absolutely terrified. It wasn't that there was anything threatening about the situation, but it was completely and inexplicably chilling. After a moment, the investigator let adrenaline take over. He bolted from the cemetery, vaulted over the stone wall, and ran across the street and yelled for his friend to come to the car. The friend didn't hesitate to come running himself. While he had missed the bleeding gravestone, he knew that the investigator was not a person to easily frighten so badly. It only took a moment to fill in the friend on what was seen, and his natural curiosity made him want to go see the stone for himself. But the investigator was not up for a return to the cemetery himself that evening. While waiting by the car, he watched his friend return to the cemetery and climb the hill to the gravestone. He seemed to be in shock as he stared at the stone. All the investigator's friend could see was his friend's.
Investigator number
I have
one
a typo.
could see.
All the investigator could see was his friend's silhouette in the fading light, just enough to realize that he wasn't moving. Right as the investigator was becoming more concerned for his friend's safety, he suddenly bolted from the cemetery back to the car. He tripped and fell on something, and without a moment of pause jumped back to his feet and kept on running. When asked if he was okay after he fell, he said that someone or something had pushed him. A hard push to his left shoulder, knocking him off his feet. Together they left the area and promised to never return. They stayed up all night discussing what had happened. It was only later that they learned the story that if they had lingered a little longer, they may have had the opportunity to witness the phenomena of the hand turning upside down. But they ultimately did not regret their decision to leave on that terrifying evening.
Yeah, dripping blood on a headstone, I'd be gone.
Yeah. Now, that said, you can't go to try and see this for yourself. because this is one of those stories that became so well known and drew so much attention that the gravestone was eventually replaced in October of 2007 to discourage future investigations. So,
Is it in Zach Bagans' museum?
I don't know. I actually didn't check. Chances are, though, if they were looking to try and put things to rest or hush-hush, so to speak, they probably did not want to give it to anybody that was going to advertise its existence.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
That man.
Just wondering. He
boy.
tries to get his hands on everything. All right, so we're going to go visit another cemetery. This is the Gilson Road Cemetery in Nashua. Gilson Road Cemetery is said to be one of the creepiest and most haunted places in New Hampshire. Many sightings of misty people have been reported. Some have said that while standing at the edges of the cemetery, you'll feel as though you're being pushed back. A black hooded figure has been seen and reported a number of times, along with a woman in a white dress. Voices of people and inhumane creatures alike have been heard in the woods. Horses and dogs are known to stay away from the area. Strange fogs will roll through the cemetery at odd times, and homes near the cemetery, well, their glasses break. Cold spots are reported. Oops, what did I do? There we go. And, of course, doors are opened and closed for no reason. Kids at the nearby sports field have reported that they feel like they're being watched from the cemetery. One fact we do know is that, well, there's a child's grave with a perfectly round hole in it that is clearly something that was happened after the stone was engraved. Looking at the engraving, it's perfectly done, not something that could have been done with the hole in it. And this text on the stone reads, "In memory of Walter Gilson, son of Mr. Joseph and Mrs. Lucy Gilson, who died August 28, 1811, aged 5 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The hole in the gravestone has its own set of theories about its existence. Some try to say it's just a bullet hole. Others will say it's part of a puzzle that leads to some treasure. And others still believe that it's a portal to the afterworld. The inexplicable nature of the hole in the stone allows the theories to run rampant, particularly in a cemetery where so much paranormal activity occurs. In one of the most recent encounters at the cemetery, a man was driving through it when he saw an older man sitting on a gravestone. He initially kept driving, but something about that man quickly caused him to stop just a few hundred feet further on. He couldn't put a figure on it, but when he went back to check on the man had vanished. In a brief moment between the initial drive-by and the driver's return, there was nowhere that the man could have gone, even at a full sprint. He has been chalked up to being amongst one of the many spirits and entities that linger in the Gilson Road Cemetery today. Question?
No. Apparently, Chris or Sam Chase has seen the mill in Dover. So, driving by it on his way up to Portland, Maine. I was going to say, we only drove through there the one time, and I didn't know what to look for.
No.
We were just going. We were heading up to Searsport, Maine, and eventually up to Bar Harbor.
Yeah.
So, yep, just kind of driving through the blink and you miss it section of New Hampshire there. But yes. So, anyways, now we did mention that largest lake in all of New Hampshire there a little earlier, but it was one of many smaller ponds and lakes that dot the mountains of New Hampshire. And in an isolated spot not far from the border with Maine, we find Archer's Pond. Myth engulfs both Archer's Pond and the forest that surrounds it. While stories are varied and range from plague deaths to misguided teenage love, one of the most pervasive is the story of Polly. Now, Polly lived in the woods with her husband, where they struggled to survive both the elements and their crushing poverty. Polly longed to buy a new pair of shoes to protect her feet from the snow, ice, and rocky terrain. Her husband refused, insisting they barely had funds to keep the couple alive. Despite his protests, Polly bought a cheap pair of shoes, and upon being discovered, was brutally decapitated by her husband. Gentleman sounds like a real winner. Overcome by grief, the husband hanged himself exactly 1 week after having taken an axe to his wife's neck. Legend holds that the ghosts of both Polly and her murderous husband roamed the woods around Archer's Pond, never finding eternal rest. Polly has been remembered in the years since with a road named after her, Polly's Crossing Road. Man, she managed to land a real winner there. Now, the story of Polly and her husband is just the start of the tales about Archer's Pond and Polly's Crossing. And we have a selection of these rumored hauntings to share with you here. Now, these are just little snippets, little vignettes. So, first one. A man named Archie killed everyone in the small village surrounding Archer's Pond and threw the bodies into the pond. Archer then hanged himself from a rope outside his house. The rope still appears on the property today. Archie's ghostly apparition is seen walking around Archer's Pond with a shotgun in hand. Now, number 2, locals insist creatures exist beyond Archer's Pond in the hills, and a group of locals went out to disprove the legends in the 1950s. They parked on a bridge near Archer's Pond and their car began shaking violently. They all ran out and vowed to never return again. Number 3, you can see the lights of old lanterns in the woods near Archer's Pond and Polly's Crossing at night. That could just be
car reflections.
Yeah, or people actually out wandering in the woods.
Searching for things they shouldn't.
Getting up to mischief. Anyways, number 4. A boy named Andy Stockman went missing. His late 70s Ford Mustang II was found at Archer's Pond. His car had been set on fire. His body was found in Tuftingtonboro, New Hampshire, with a gunshot wound to his head. This rumor has been confirmed by several people who knew him, but unfortunately the murder case remains unsolved. Rumor number 5. A young teen couple that lived on opposite sides of the pond were sneaking out at night to meet each other at the edge of the pond. The girl's parents didn't like the boy and told them to stay away from each other. They met at least once a week and promised each other they were going to run away and get married. One night, the teenage girl's father noticed she was sneaking out and followed his daughter. When he found them together, he murdered the young boy. The young girl killed herself a week later. Their ghostly shadows can be seen sitting on the northern edge of the lake with their arms around each other. Number 6. A man named Archer was walking on the frozen pond and fell through the ice. His body was never found. The townspeople named the pond after Archer. Number 7. In the 1800s, the Archer's Pond area residents all died from the plague. Smallpox to be exact. Most of their bodies were buried in a cemetery on the south side of Archer's Pond. Today, only one headstone remains. There are old cellar holes in the south side of Archer's Pond as well. Other bodies may have been buried at the cemetery located at the intersection of Archer's Pond Road and Chickville Road in Ossipee. 2 people at the Ossipee Town Hall have backed up the story about the village residents dying from smallpox and their bodies being buried in a cemetery there. So, all kinds of spooky stuff going on around Archer Pond there.
We're not moving there.
No,
I'm good.
But actually, that was our last story for tonight.
Wow.
So.
But we are going to take a little hiatus because of the Key West trip coming up next week. So we will not be back on the 7th. We'll be back on the 12th of December. Sorry,
the 5th is 2 weeks from today.
Sorry, not the 5th, but we'll be back on the 12th.
We'll be doing shows on the 12th and the 26th.
Yeah.
So, and both of them will be Christmas themed. I don't remember the order of them.
We are doing, I think we're doing Victorian first.
We'll figure it out. Either way, there's going to be Victorian ghost stories where we will go ahead and we'll pull up from Days of Yore, and then we will have the ghost stories that are actually surround the Christmas holiday. So
the day after Christmas.
We'll be on the air the day after Christmas, so you can spend the first of your 12 days of Christmas with us, or is it technically second? Second day. So. But yeah, so anyways, appreciate y'all tuning in and joining us this evening, and hope that you all will have a wonderful Thanksgiving here this
Yes.
week. Whether you're traveling to see friends or you're just kind of staying at home, enjoy the holiday, be safe, and yeah.
Don't overindulge too much.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. So easy
Yes.
Happy Halloween.
to do. We were just talking about that earlier, how it's like Halloween just was like a blink of the eye ago, so it seems. I mean, granted, it was 3 weeks ago today, but it was 3 weeks ago
It feels
today.
a long, long time ago already. But yeah, so we will see you all in 3 weeks, and we hope you are safe and happy this next holiday.
Yeah.
Last questions?
Question. And yes, we will be for Sam Chase here, our National Nightmares friend. We will be on that meeting tomorrow evening, so we will see you there.
Yep.
But and anybody else, if you not for the meeting per se, but if you ever want to go ahead and drop us a line, we're always happy to hear from you. You can send us a note via messenger and all that good stuff.
Yep. And if you're in DC and you want to go tour, you need to go check out National Nightmares.
Yep. National Nightmares LLC. You can find him on Facebook, and they got their he has his website. But definitely the gentleman to go with if you want to have a ghost tour in the nation's capital.
Yes.
So, anyways, I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
No, really.
Nope.
No.
We've got nothing going on right now.
No, it's nice. It's kind of nice and slowed down. We did do Comic-Con this past Saturday, and had a good time there. So we will probably plan on doing that again. We had a future date whenever the next one is. So
Probably spring. I don't know. He doesn't have an exact schedule.
we'll figure it out.
We'll
Day
see
at a
what
time.
days are, and
Yeah.
if we haven't gotten already scheduled for something else.
Yeah, we do have some special events coming up.
Or just confirming the
Tentatively,
last few dates with partners.
Yeah, but nothing in the immediate future aside from us doing the Key West thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, won't miss anything over the next few weeks. But yeah, we'll look forward to talking to you again in just a few weeks' time. And in the meantime, stay spooky. Cheers, and y'all have a good night.
Bye.
I don't know why I'm waving.
Because you can.